And Dr. Katz, can you hear me?
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Give me a second. Okay, so I'm going to share screen and welcome Dr. Katz here. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. So it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Katz to our session today, the first session for Virtual Summer School in Entrepreneurship Research. Dr. Katz is professor at St. Louis University. His interest is in the area of entrepreneurship education, emergence, which you read his Katz and Gattner paper, small business, opportunity recognition. He served on the editorial board of many journals over the years, so there's no way I can go through the list of those journals. I'll just say now he serves on JSBM and ENT board, and he has also served on the board of governors of the Academy of Management and is a past chair of the ENT division of AOM. And the last thing I'll say is many of people in my generation have benefited tremendously from the work that Dr. Katz has done over the years for the entrepreneurship division and for the entrepreneurship research community. Thank you, Jerry, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. All right, let's see. I've got, are you going to put up the slides on your end?
I just made you co-host, so you should be able to.
Okay. Yep. There. All right. Great. So, let me get this up here so I can see that. Basically, what I'd like to do today is focus on a few key elements. Back here. Part of it is to take a second and talk about the Katz and Gartner article that you've read. I'm going to spend a little time talking about the history of entrepreneurship and small business as disciplines. And I'm also going to spend the largest amount of my time focused on giving suggested strategies for doctoral students. Part of that is trying to give, I think I have a slightly offbeat idea about the best way for doctoral students to make progress in today's world. And I've had several fairly successful doctoral students. Kathy Lundeen, who many of you have heard of, is probably the best example of it. And she says that it still remains viable. So let's go through that. So you just took the quick quiz, the one question quiz on the paper. For those of you who are trying to remember what it was, an imitation, what was it? It was intention. What it was, the original Katz and Gartner paper was an effort to try and codify the necessary and sufficient conditions for an entrepreneur, a new firm to emerge. It could be a high growth firm, a local business, anything. But for an organization to come into emergence, four things need. What are the necessary and sufficient conditions? Boundary, basically knowing what's inside and outside the firm. Resources, intention, and exchange. And exchange is the movement of anything back and forth across the boundary. The idea here is there are people who actually may be occasionally selling cakes to a local bakery, but they don't imagine themselves in a business. They may have resources in exchange, but no intention and maybe not even a boundary. So part of this was trying to figure out what was necessary. What was kind of cool about this is that this model was actually used in the original PSED, Panel Study of Entrepreneurial Dynamics, as the acid test for figuring out if a respondent was indeed a person who started a business. And it's been used and cited a whole lot of times. It gives you a simple way to build out. I did forget to do one thing. That paper is actually part of my major effort in research over the past 45 years. A lot of what I've been doing was I was interested in how organizations come into existence. And part of that was this idea of organizational emergence. It was it was also actually to put in a plug for sorry, let me jump back. One of the ways we were doing this was with Connie Marie Gaglio from San Francisco State. We worked on a model of opportunity identification. What's kind of fun here, and I can make Vishal blush, is that my next door neighbor here at St. Louis University is Jin Tong Tang, who got her doctorate at Alabama and is probably one of the people they're proudest of because she is a publishing dynamo. I joked with my dean last week that if our corner of the top floor of the business school had suddenly been blown up, the universe would lose its two major researchers on opportunity identification. And it's fun because our models are very different and we love to use each other's models. But yes, here's a UA alum doing great things. I did a lot of work on employment status choice because one of the things is a lot of people don't think of themselves as starting a business. They think of themselves as pursuing a career. And that career can very often be done self-employed or employed by others. And that turned out to be a very practical way to think about how people make decisions to become entrepreneurs. And then the entire entrepreneurial career process became a part of what I was doing. What Vishal was probably alluding to about how helpful I've been to people is that I've been studying the history of entrepreneurship education and the infrastructure of entrepreneurship education for ages. And that's part of what I'm known for. And if you say, well, there are lots of other papers on other topics, and those are targets of opportunity brought to me typically by doctoral students or young professors. So let me see if I can get back to here. So let me talk to you for a little, just a couple minutes about history. I am working on a project to try and get entrepreneurship approved as a STEM discipline in the US. That's done by the Department of Homeland Security, who issues visas for foreign students coming to America. And a student coming to America who's taking a STEM discipline automatically gets 2 extra years on their student visa. So there's a real purpose behind getting entrepreneurship approved as a STEM discipline. It actually started out as a STEM discipline because what was going on in ancient days, and we're talking a couple thousand years back, enlightened kings, royalty, would often want to try and grow their kingdoms through improving agriculture, metallurgy, and engineering. And think about the guy who built the Great Canal in China, Yu the Great, 500 BC, 2,500 years ago, also had put a lot of effort into improving the growth of crops in that country. So that literally was how these sciences began to emerge, particularly sciences of agriculture, metallurgy, and engineering. The interesting thing was the problem from the beginning was getting the actual practitioners out in the field to apply these latest ideas. So the whole idea of diffusion of science, basically what we call agricultural extension, was something that actually is a couple thousand years old. So that was really the basis of scientific agriculture. It started in China, moved to Europe, to America. Just to give you an idea, it was many of you have heard of some of the founding fathers of America, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Both of them were actually farmers, and they were both really into advanced technology. They were always tinkering. Washington was the first president, and he forced the government to create a patent system, and he personally would sign every patent. He liked the third patent so much, it was for a plow, that he asked the inventors to design that plow for his farm, Mount Vernon, outside of Washington. Thomas Jefferson actually had a competing plow, but he believed in open source. So he made it available to everyone. No one had to pay him anything. So it's fun to think of these two guys talking plows and arguing about open source versus licensing, but it really happened. So American colleges, very often, early American colleges actually were teaching agriculture as a topic. This actually was so successful that it led to the creation of land-grant universities, almost all of which had agriculture schools by the 1860s. And that still didn't get enough, not enough of those people with bachelor's degrees wanted to become farmers. So agricultural extension became a service of these agricultural universities, helping farmers become aware of and implement all of these innovations. That expanded and became the discipline of farm management. But those same extension agents were also trying to develop the rural economy. So they were advising small businesses and non-farm businesses. They even had things like the old-fashioned steam trains going through farm country, stopping every 50 miles or so, setting up shop and having a big agricultural fair to show people the latest innovations. Farm management led to small business management, the first course of which was taught in Michigan in 1927. The first text didn't come out, though, until 1949. The first entrepreneurship course was taught at Harvard in 1946 and was building off of technologies and techniques developed in World War II. There, the first textbook didn't come out until 1974. So we're talking about very, very recent kinds of things. This table takes that original 1913 farm management book, which is the middle column, the left-hand green column, the small business book, and an entrepreneurship book, and compares topics in each for each of these three. And you'll see there's a lot of green, which shows it was in all of those cases. One of the things that this points up is that what we teach, whether it's small business or entrepreneurship, has its roots in that farm management model that started in America in the 1860s. But that is our tradition. All right, let's get to the part that's probably of most importance, relevance, or use to you, which is a strategy for being a doctoral student. Okay, I have presented this at the Academy of Management, and usually there are these big name professors, even much bigger name professors than me at the back of the room, and they see this and they put their arms like this and they shake their head no all the time. So let me share this with you, and you can feel free to disagree or piss off your professors. I think dissertations are irrelevant because, and publications are more important than your dissertation. That means that your dissertation is not your most important document, it's your resume. And I believe there is a clear hierarchy of schools, and I believe that a brute force doctoral student approach is not the way to go. I'm going to explain all of this, so just hang loose. By the way, if you've got questions, please, are they asking me in real time? Are we waiting? Do they post? What's going on?
Jerry will wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
but they can type in the chat box if they want in the meantime. Yeah.
All right. Why are dissertations irrelevant? One, every person getting a doctorate has a dissertation. Because reading a dissertation involves reading hundreds of pages, no one can tell the good one from the bad ones from a fast pass. So a good resume, a good executive summary of a dissertation and a bad executive summary doesn't tell you if the actual dissertation is good or bad. Therefore, all dissertations are created as equal unless you got some kind of dissertation award. Therefore, to make the vast majority of hires, we need to use something, and what we turn to is your resume or curriculum vitae, CV. All right, so what makes a resume or CV good? Different mixes of the big three. Teaching, which I say goes up. The importance of teaching goes up as you go down. Research, the importance of research goes up as you go up. Service, past a threshold, it doesn't count until you hit administrative or national levels. Okay, down, up, what is this man talking about? Here's where this one comes in. There is a hierarchy of schools out there, and you need to think about it. In the world, there are 30,000, give or take, higher education institutions. In the US, there are about 6,000. Up are the ones that have a higher rating. Down are the ones with a lower rating. Now, how does this actually play out? In the US, and actually globally now, the top schools, since entrepreneurship is invariably in business schools, the top business schools are accredited by the AACSB. There are 1,045 schools in the world that are accredited by the AACSB. About 556 are here in the US. So if we're looking at those 5,300 US schools, there are 556 at the highest level, and then about 4,800 at a lower level. If we want to see what you often see in the journals or in the magazines, there's the top 40 schools, the second 40 schools, and then you've got the rest of the AACSB, and then you have the rest of the schools. So as you're moving up through these ranks, those are the schools where research becomes, the higher up you go, research becomes more important. The higher up you go, teaching becomes less important. Now, when they're looking at your CV or your resume, how do they decide if you are worthy? One is the number of hits you get or grants. Hits are my term for publications. So the number of publications is the first thing they look at. We're going to see in a second how many people in the field of entrepreneurship have how many publications. Then, if you've got hits, what's the quality of your hits? What are the quality of your grants? Now, the quality of grants is often determined by both the how prestigious the grant giver is and how much money it's for. Then there's a point of finesse, if you will, the conceptual fit among the hits or grants. Are you basically going in all sorts of different directions, or do you have a focus? What is the trajectory of grants and hits? It's fine to start out publishing in a C journal. We grade everything. Professors grade everything. A journals, B journals, C journals, D journals, F journals. Okay, publishing in a C is an okay place to start as long as you then move to B journals, because if you went from C journals to B journals, the linear regression model predicts that you will eventually get to A. Yay, that's what we want to see. That's what we're betting on with all of you. So how dependent are you on other people to get your next set of publications or grants? The more self-sufficient you are, or the more you can leverage the people at the school you're going to, the better it is for that school. And then there's a question, is there much more room for more development of the idea you're playing with? So the pecking order, A-rated journals, remember everything's rated A, B, C, D, and think about it, the ADBC journalists and all the journalists literally are rating journals. First tier right out of the A journals. Okay, how do you tell if a journal is highly rated journal? It's probably indexed in SSI or SSCI. There's the emerging SSI, the ESCI, and lesser journals, lesser indexes like ABI. Then there's the second tier contenders, non-indexed referee journals. Refereeing is always a good thing. And then indexed non-referee journals. So if you're trying to figure out, and these days there's so many rating systems for journals, you can quickly figure out what level a journal is. So how to publish. There's this brute force approach. I have doctoral students come to me, they're going to go it alone, do everything themselves. They're starting their theories from scratch. It's totally unheard of. I'm going to have to create all this new stuff. I'm going to have to gather data that's never been gathered before. That means you also have to get faculty who are going to buy in and support you, even though your work isn't related necessarily to theirs. That's a real good sales job you're putting on yourself. And this means because it's a totally new thing, there is no research stream to build on. Where do you publish this paper? Because if a journal is publishing papers in an area, it makes sense to send a journal to that, your article to them. So my recommendation, if you are a doctoral student going into a doctoral program, is to leverage research advantages. There are publishing faculty in your school. Look at what they're doing, see whose work you like the most, or see what faculty is the easiest to work with. I'm flexible, whatever works best for you, and hitch up with them. Take a piece of their action. Look for topical networks, whether we're talking like population ecology, using existing theories, resource dependence, tie in through a data set, PSED or GEM. Leverage your context. There are 140 people on this call today. They are all over the world. Start connecting with them. When you go to your professional meetings, grab as many cards as you can. Talk to them. Stay in contact. You never know who you're going to need or benefit from working with. And then some people get fixated on trying to publish in A journals. I admire that, but I'm okay publishing with B journals. If you go back and look at my Google Scholar page, you'll see I published in lots of journals like Journal of Business Venturing, Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice. When I published in them, they were B journals, not A journals. I would like to say because they published my paper, they became A journals. That's not the cause. They became A journals later. But yeah, I believe publishing in a good B is fine. Why? The thing is, B journals will publish a more controversial article idea than an A journal. Why? A journal editors see themselves as gatekeepers. If they approve a new idea, that makes it mainstream. And that's something they do, but they do very, very cautiously. So B journal editors will push the envelope more. They want to say more wild and crazy things. That gets them attention. They'll publish longer or more innovatively written pieces. They understand niche ideas better than the A journals, which are usually very, very broad in their perspective. And there are a lot more B journals than A journals, so more chances for you. And what I have discovered is the editors of A journals actually read what they think are the best B journals. There is appreciation out there. Okay, how to publish, things you may not have thought of. If there is a call for a special issue like this UN Survey Development Sustainable Development Goals, you have something that's relevant, throw it in there. A lot of these journal special issues, they're desperate to get their hands on papers. And if they get something that is relevant to the topic, they are eager to publish it, so you'll never have a better chance than that. Be a special issue editor. You think that's impossible? One of my former doctoral students, who's now an associate dean at Fairfield in Connecticut, actually went to a presentation by the editor of the Journal of Organizational Change Management. They got to talking afterwards. They had dinner together. By the time I saw them the next day, they had decided to create a special issue on hyperlongevity. And so a doctoral student was a co-editor of a special issue of a journal. This is before his dissertation was even halfway through. If you're thinking about the professional organizations, build a session, tie in a journal issue, become a reviewer. And the better the journal you can review for, the better your status. Pick conferences with proceedings, publish about teaching. So the Journal of Management Education, the different case journals. We now have entrepreneurship, annals of entrepreneurship education and pedagogy, things like that. Yay! Do book reviews, do practitioner or general press, do internet journals, create a column online and moderate, go for new journals. Okay, how hard is it really to get published in entrepreneurship? Well, it turns out how many people are in entrepreneurship. I got to the last page of Google Scholar's entrepreneurship disciplinary page. There are 10,200 people who claim to be in entrepreneurship. How many of them have one? Now, so of that, 8,500 have at least one citation. So about 1,700 have no citations. 10 citations, now we're talking 6,584 people have 10 or more. 100, 4,100. 1,000, 1,700. 10,000, 272. And 100,000 citations, there are 10 people. By the way, there are 4,580 people in the entrepreneurship division as of yesterday evening. So it turns out I have a list. A list of journals. It's on the internet. You can find it. Google core publications in entrepreneurship, and it'll take you right there. By the way, if you find I am missing any of the journal, if there are any entrepreneurship or small business journals I haven't listed, please let me know. I'll gladly put them in. By the way, one other thing from before, I forgot to mention it, that entrepreneurship is STEM discipline. If you know of any place in the world where entrepreneurship is accepted as a STEM discipline, please inform me, because it would really help making my case to the US government. Okay, so 187 journals on my list. Figure an average of 3 journals issues a year, figure an average of 5 articles per issue. That would mean 2,805 articles a year. That means that your chances of getting an article in is actually probably a lot better than you thought. So I think it's challenging, especially for A journals. But if you're talking B and C journals, a lot of them are actually desperate, and particularly for special issues, they're desperate to get articles. So to summarize, publishing pays off for you more than research. Doing research you don't publish is basically a waste of time. The more publications you have, the greater your flexibility, the greater your choice. The linear regression model predicts publication. So you publish in C journals, B journals, A journals. If you think you're going to publish one article and everyone's going to want to hire you, you're deluding yourself. That's a psychological term. If you publish papers and they all fit together, that's called an oeuvre. An oeuvre has class. Good B's beget A's attentions. That's one of the things I believe. I'm a great believer in always being open to opportunity. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. All right, 21 minutes, 30 seconds in. I provide service after the sale. Please reach out to me. What kind of questions can I answer?
Jerry, thanks a ton for such a wonderful presentation. And I think at this stage, our audience also knows why you are so respected and appreciated in the field, given the things you talked about. So thank you. Let me ask you a question, and then we'll open it up to others to ask questions. You talked
Please.
about B's and possibly C's over time becoming A's. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how this happens? How do journals move up, and do they move down?
Oh yeah, they do move down. It does happen. It's rare because they move heaven and earth to avoid that. What you know as Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice, which is on the Financial Times Top 50 list, right? Okay, that started out as the American Journal of Small Business. It was at Baylor University, which is a small Baptist university in Waco, Texas, like the back end of nowhere. How would they get famous? Well, Ray decided to remake AJSB, American Journal of Small Business, into Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice. He got a group of very, very fast publishing young faculty members like me, like Bill Gartner, Betsy Gatewood, and populated a reworked editorial board with these young people who are publishing at a furious rate and trying to get into top tier journals. And we literally defined what entrepreneurship would be, how entrepreneurship research would differ from small business research, and wrote the papers to bring that view into reality. And we worked very hard when we were at professional meetings. If we saw the best ideas, we would basically walk up to them as editorial board members and say, I want you to submit this to ETP because I can get this thing published fast, and that's what you want. You want to get your word out. And a lot of people gave us a lot of papers for fast visibility. And back then, there weren't 187 entrepreneurship journals. It was like 6. So if they could get into an entrepreneurship journal, there's no way to get into the Academy of Management Journal or Review. we hadn't been gate kept in yet. So getting into an entrepreneurship journal was the path. And as more and more of the people in the A journal started to quote ideas coming from ETP, JBV journals like that, the higher the reputation of ETP and JBV rose. So that's literally how it's done. If you want to see one that happened pretty recently, look at the Strategic Entrepreneurship Journal. That came out of the blue. But the strategy people, there's a subset of people who were focused on strategy and entrepreneurship, and that was pushed by an entrepreneurship professor named Dale Meyer, who is at Colorado, and he really saw strategy as a way to push entrepreneurship into the big leagues. So there's different strategies for going about that, but it hinges on a group of very, very passionate, conceptually driven reviewers and editors trying to push the envelope and trying to send a message that resonates with a substantial number of journal editors.
Got it. Got it. That's helpful, Jerry. Jerry, before we ask participants for questions, could we stop the sharing so they can actually see you full screen?
Absolutely. That probably will decrease the number of, but go ahead.
Thank you. And if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and we can call on you to ask your question. As I'm waiting for you guys to ask your questions, I'm going to go ahead with another question. You said special issue editor. Are you suggesting that it's a good idea for doctoral students and junior professors to be special issue editor? And if yes, what's the approach that you recommend?
Yes, I absolutely believe it's useful, because part of this is, for a doctoral student, it helps reinforce what you say your area of expertise is. The fact that you convinced a older, wiser head who is probably into that idea to take you on as a special issue editor is going to be, that person making you a special issue editor with them has given you a seal of approval. And they're putting their reputation out in public associated with your name. If you screw up, you're hurting that big name. So no, that's a pretty powerful indicator that you have something of value. It's a great way to prove your expertise. It gives you a way to see what's happening and give feedback. You will have two shots there. You may have an article that you can contribute to that special issue, but you will also guaranteed be co-author of the introduction to the special issue, where you can talk about what's important to you. So all of these things, and this is such an unusual thing for a doctoral student to do. If you can do that, even in a C journal, it's going to say, wow, you must be a serious, if you get serious about something, you really are able to carry through on that. So super neat. I think it is a value. And with 187 journals, understand, for a journal editor, you taking over a special issue takes one issue a year. If they've got 3 issues a year, you've just taken 1/3 of their work for next year and you've reduced it by 50 to 75%. Oh, that's wonderful. That's why they love special issues. Also, if they have a special issue, it gives them an excuse to advertise to people reading other journals, but who might be interested in that topic, which is a way to recruit new people to the journal. So all of those things are reasons why. Hey, this is entrepreneurship theory that you teach students. Apply it in your own business, your own life.
And does that also apply to edited books, or that's a different issue?
Oh, no. An edited book is very, very classy. They're no, absolutely the same thing. Again, the challenge is to find some older, wiser head, even an assistant professor, that because it's a rare text or book editor, managing editor, who's going to sign a doctoral student. They'll sign a professor, but the professors will take on a doctoral student who's willing. And the idea here, when you're doing that, if you are the co-editor of the book or that issue, you're probably going to handle all the scud work. Yeah, yes, you'll get to review some of the papers, but you're going to be one managing the Excel file with everything in it. That's the way the stuff goes.
Wonderful.
Okay,
We have a question from Rima. Rima, do you want to ask?
please.
Sure. Hi, Professor. Thanks for this wonderful time.
What's your question?
Yes. So you mentioned that there is difference between entrepreneurship and small business.
Yes.
I want to know what exactly is the difference, because I was all the time confused if it is one and the same thing. And second question is there also some difference between startups and the previous two terms?
Startups in the what?
Startups, entrepreneurship, and small businesses.
Yeah. Okay. Entrepreneurship emerged after through World War II and was focused on the commercialization of high technology businesses. It was also developed with an idea that these businesses require massive infusions of capital. So it was the entire model of entrepreneurship was built around seeking venture capital or major corporate investment. Small business involved anything else. It could be high tech, go back to the agricultural extension. It could be low tech. It's usually self-funded or funded with friends, family, maybe bank money. It turns out that entrepreneurship had particular focuses. For example, if you look back at that table I showed you, entrepreneurship actually talks about customers. Think about farm management. No, there weren't any customers. Customers were basically anyone buying food. So that's everyone. So it was a very different sort of model. So yeah, there's a fair amount of difference between entrepreneurship and small business. Okay, historical thing. The funny thing about entrepreneurship is it's so much sexier than small business. And so all the big name schools that had small business courses immediately moved them over to entrepreneurship. But the problem was entrepreneurship was built on a lie. When entrepreneurship was created, all of the venture capital in America was either in Boston, in the Northeast corridor, New York to Boston, or in the San Francisco, what became the Silicon Valley. The rest of the country had no venture capital. So there was no opportunity to actually follow through on entrepreneurship, but schools all over were adopting entrepreneurship. So small business always exists. Small business always needs to be improved. And a lot of the science behind entrepreneurship and small business is in fact shared. So there are a few things there's a few things distinctive to small business that entrepreneurs don't care about, and that's part of that's the supply chain, part of that's inventory, part of that's insurance and risk. There are other things that entrepreneurs are interested in that the small business aren't. Managing supply chains, customer development, business models, venture capital. So that's kind of where that goes. Oh, I lost the other one. What was the other?
The difference between startups and entrepreneurship.
No,
Yes.
by my definition, all organizational emergence, there isn't an obvious difference in how startups, how entrepreneurial firms and small businesses emerge. Whether what their targets are may differ. And the fact is, most companies that start as entrepreneurial ventures aiming for venture capital, 90% of them fail. And only about 1% of startups get venture capital. So you can see what happens there. So, okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And Rima, let me also add that Dr. Katz has a textbook on entrepreneurship and small business that's called Entrepreneurial Small Business, which is published by McGraw-Hill.
Yeah.
And then I have a textbook called Small Business Creating Value Through Entrepreneurship with Wiley. So you can see that for many of us, entrepreneurship and small business are different, but they are also overlapping.
No, that's it. Actually, I talk about drift. And what happened was you had entrepreneurship, you had small business, and then they basically have merged. So yeah, that's fun.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, professors.
Perfect. Oscar, you're next, I believe.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Katz. Thank you for this presentation, very rich. My question is regarding your initial sentence about dissertations are irrelevant. I found it very provocative. So my question is, do you think that this commentary apply for any context, or is mainly for US-based context?
that thing about up versus down. If you're going to go into a small local college, they probably won't even be recruiting at a place like the Academy of Management or USASB. They will probably just go strictly from advertisements. If you're going into a place where professors aren't expected to publish, then what becomes more important are, remember that I said that teaching becomes more important as you go down, research becomes more important if you go up. Okay, if you're going for a non-research oriented school, then research is of less importance, and your teaching experience is of much more importance, because that's what they're going to do that's what they're going to exploit you around. They don't care if you write anything. They just want you to teach as many classes as well as possible. So that goes back to what I was saying about the research versus teaching, whether it goes up and down.
Thanks.
Okay, pleasure.
Indukuri, I think you're next.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Sir, of late, empirical research papers are having less chances of publication than that of the secondary data and qualitative, all related stuff. The publishers are giving more importance for the secondary data based by using the latest statistical tools and all that, rather than empirical papers. What is your comment on that?
Let me see if I understand. You're saying that I thought you said at the beginning that empirical papers are getting harder to publish.
I think what he means is primary data empirical papers.
Oh,
Empirical paper means primary data based.
Yeah. Well, okay. When you're talking about primary data, primary research, new data sets, the challenge is, what is the quality of the data? And this is the problem. If we publish something that has a catch-as-catch-can sample, and it turns out someone else comes up with another catch-as-catch-can sample, and they get opposite results, how do we decide which is right? So the risk to an editor of publishing a paper that is new, that is using new data, new techniques, is riskier, and the chance of being found wrong in a subsequent paper by another author is higher. That's a tough one. So that's part of the reason I think they are more skittish. There's also a thing that we're developing new technologies, analytic technologies, so quickly that I think it's harder to know what is safe to bet on, particularly if an editor does want to be somewhat leading edge in what they're doing, because part of their reputation depends on how innovative the papers are that they publish, assuming those innovations are successful ones. So that's I think part of the skittishness. The fun part is, if you publish conceptual theoretical papers, then the editor suddenly, what you see is what you get. If the editor thinks the paper hangs together, the chance that someone else will come up and say, that's total bull, is much less. So part of this is kind of how editors try to think through these things.
Perfect. Thank you. Sylvia, I think you're next.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have two issues.
You're muted. Let's try again. I didn't hear the question. Try it again.
Sorry, I think I got muted, but I want you to throw more light on probably what are the new emerging areas of research in entrepreneurship, because I realize that when they call special issues, most times it is in an area that is emerging or that is attracting a lot of attention. So from your own experience, what are those areas that probably we should be getting interested in and trying to build around? And then secondly, what is your comment, observation in terms of these papers that are called literature review papers? Are they also knowledge adding? Is it something that can help you publish in a top journal, or yeah? Okay. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, I know this is being recorded, and this is going to make this, you're probably going to want to save this because you can pull this up and say that you've never heard, that yes, a professor can say this. To your first question, what are the emerging areas in entrepreneurship? I don't know. Very Tamara is smiling. Yeah. Okay. The fact is, I was the founding editor of Advances in Entrepreneurship from Emergence and Growth. But I am getting ready to retire. I'm focused on my textbook. I'm focused on my students. I am not scanning 12 journals every month now. So I'm going to just say I'm not the professor to ask for that. So the second thing, lit reviews. Lit reviews still get published. They are a great base. They are a better basis for getting published than purely conceptual papers, because a lit review, having literature, automatically has value and adds value. So I think it's a great way to do it. Pretty much all journals publish lit reviews because it makes the journal look classy. If you are I think the question is, do you pick a journal? If you're doing a lit review, do you pick a journal that's publishing a lot of articles there? If you're writing a lit review that's citing and reanalyzing multiple articles from a particular journal, that editor might be interested in publishing that lit review piece because it showcases and shows the value of their work, their prior editorial decisions. Ooh, talk about feeding an ego. Yay.
So, Dr. Katz, you said you are not the right person to talk about what are the emerging areas, but
yeah.
When you were mentoring doctoral students, was your advice to them to go look for emerging areas and then come back and think about their research? Or how did you approach this at a conceptual level when you were mentoring doctoral students?
I had some students who came in and they knew what they wanted to do. And the question was, am I going to help them, or am I going to connect them to someone who will help them? I had other students who came in and they knew they wanted to do management. We were in a management department or entrepreneurship, and they would take that research advantage approach and build their model based on professors and studies that they have locally that they liked, close at home. So I know how hard it is to do a doctorate. You folks know what ABD means? All but dissertation, all but dissertated. I ABD'd twice in my life before I got it on the third try. So I know better than most how hard it is. So I saw my role as working with the student, figuring out what they wanted and help them achieve what they wanted. It turned out, you look at Kathy Lundeen, and Kathy's focus was on ethics and education, things like that. And I just did everything I could to help her because I saw she was brilliant. I had the student I had mentioned, the Jesuit priest, his stuff on hyperlongevity has given him a 30-year publishing career. So, I adapted my model to them. But some professors have a vision and you come in, you buy into that vision, or you take a hike, go find another professor. So that's kind of where I sit there.
Thank you. Denix, do you want to ask next?
Yes, sir. Actually, my question is regarding if a venture doesn't want to scale up, then they won't be approaching the VC or a venture capitalist. Then will they not come under the entrepreneurship field?
Oh, the model for, if you're pursuing using an entrepreneurship model, everything is fine. If it will get you the fundamentals of what you need to get a business launched and to some extent run. The point is that if you've been focused on trying to get venture capital money, you designed your business that way, you focused on putting in more money rather than protecting what you have, an entrepreneur pursuing an entrepreneurship theory model of creation will, when they lose VC or decide to opt out of that, where will their weaknesses be? Well, most likely they will be more highly risk exposed without adequate management. So their risk profile is wrong for a small business, and they'll have trouble getting loans and the like. Their insurance will probably be inadequate. Their human resources will probably be non-existent. All of these sorts of things that are built into the fabric of how do you create a small business will be weaknesses in a venture capital focused firm that suddenly or that decides to become a small business. So if I'm consulting a company, and I used to run an angel network for our university, companies that were deciding after we were the last straw and they're going to give it up, I would go back and talk to them and help them. I would advise them on what they need to do if they're going to become a good small business. Because a good entrepreneurial firm is missing or hasn't spent time or energy considering many of the factors that make a good small business good. Vice versa, if a small business gets to it turns out that they suddenly have a really hot product, the kind of things that they're going to miss are the issues that drive entrepreneurial firms. So they will be inadequately prepared to pursue or even deal with large amounts of money. They will be unprepared for scaling up production or their supply chain.
Are they not addressable?
Yes.
Sorry, but so that's so no, I think a company that a firm built on an entrepreneurial model will have and that becomes a small business will have shortcomings. A small business that suddenly is presented with an entrepreneurial opportunity will have shortcomings, and the other model helps you identify what areas you need to focus on and fix to be successful in one form or the other.
Thank you, Jerry. A couple of questions we've received in the chat box is, what about innovation? You did not mention innovation in either entrepreneurship or small business. So in your thinking, where does innovation fit in this?
Well, the point was, no, I actually I did at the very, very beginning. The whole point was enlightenment. An enlightened king, enlightened royalty is a person who takes these fundamental things like making things, making food, and says, let's do a better job. That's innovation. And the point was, yes, I will support people who do innovation, but then how do we get that innovation diffused to everyone? That's what extension was, and that's what consulting is. So no, innovation is part and parcel of how to do this. And the fact is, even if we're talking, we actually created a culinary entrepreneurship program here on campus with the nutrition and dietetics department. And those people, a new restaurant opens and they're doing it because the chef thinks they've got a better way to make a hamburger. That's innovation. That's fine. No, I think that's built into organizations. I think you can say that, like entrepreneurship versus small business, the degree of innovation a person wants to pursue is highly variable. Some people always like to be doing new things. Vishal and I, in one sense, have to be innovators because we have a product, our textbooks, but everyone wants us to constantly improve the textbook by making sure the latest ideas are in there. And so, we're constantly looking at, okay, what are the best ideas to put in there? What ideas do we think we can wait another 3 years for, or something like that? So no, innovation is part and parcel of what we do. Is there a separate theory of innovation? No, I think in our textbooks, we talk about you're constantly looking for ways to improve. And that is what innovation is all about.
Perfect. Thank you. Olayod, do you have a question? Olayod Agbola?
Yes, good day, everyone. Thank you, Professor Gupta. Thank you, Professor Katz. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Please.
Hello?
Yes. Tell us.
Okay, great. So I wanted to ask, when I read your paper about how organizations emerge, the 4 properties are arranged in some order, but in your presentation today, the order is different. So I wanted to know, is there an order to how these properties help to explain the emergence of organizations? And then secondly, to ask if these properties can also be adapted to explain how countries or economies transition from one stage of development to another. Thank you.
Okay. The first one, I will send Vishal a follow-up paper by one of my doctoral students, Susan Peters. She's actually now she's just retired as an endowed chair professor of entrepreneurship. But we actually showed how BRIE gets applied. In real life, what happens is the four properties can occur in any order. They also recur, so that I described a model that is B, 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 E, E, I, R, B, and goes like that. And the creation of a business might have literally hundreds of cycles of BRIE elements. So I'll send that to you, and you can all see how BRIE looks when it's operating in practice. So it comes back in all sorts of ways. Could BRIE be used for the development of economies? If we're talking about the creation of new economies, I could see, it's easy to me to see how that might be indicative. If we're talking about established economies, I don't know that BRIE is terribly useful there, because BRIE describes, the BRIE model describes the ongoing activity of any kind of organization. I don't know that there's anything particularly useful in there for explaining how everyday business is already operating, or everyday countries are already operating. Although it is, it is one way to think about organizing or analyzing country level economic activity. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for that.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you,
Charu, I believe you're next.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. It was a lovely, presentation and lovely listening to you. I have a question here. Recently, I taught this course, Financing New Ventures, and I gave an assignment to my students asking them to conduct a podcast, for the entrepreneurs at different stages of their, venture journey. And, the analysis that I figured out from there after listening to all the podcast was that most of the ventures here in Middle East, they are they initially want bootstrapping, and if I can use that strong word, they hate going for diluting their ownership.
Yeah.
And so bootstrapping became the key financing thing for them. And when asked by my students about how likely they see they going and scaling up their business and going ahead with venture capitalists or so, they said few years we are not thinking about it. So what do you think, in this context, how bootstrapping until where they can reach, and is this something which is a common pattern these days?
Yeah, no. You're absolutely totally right. Basically, virtually all businesses bootstrap. Using U.S. data, although some folks with UNESCO have said that it holds up elsewhere. About 70% of American startups, population of startups, about 70% use money from family, friends, and fools. So mostly family and friends is what we're talking about here. And in those cases, they're not partnerships, they're usually loans of one sort or another. So it's being paid back. Only about 30% of American businesses actually get formal bank loans at some point in their existence. And in the US, to get a bank loan, you're getting a loan based on your cash flow. So if you have a side business, you can get a loan for your side business, but you need to be able to pay the loan back from your regular business, your regular job's cash flow. So the banker says, as long as you're working for that big company, I can get my money back every month. And then angel investment is under 10%, and venture capital investment is under 0.1%. So yeah, what you're seeing is absolutely righteous, and what the vast majority, and in small business, that's why in my textbook, I think Vishal has more in his, but in my textbook there's two paragraphs on venture capital. because if you're running a small business, that's how relevant it is. I have all sorts of stuff on bank loans and angel. I actually talk a little bit about angel investment. I think I'm up to about 2 pages there, but no, that's about it.
Thank you. Jerry, I'm looking at the clock and we are at time, so I'm going to transition into the last 2 questions.
Okay.
One is from a student, I believe, on the chat, which is, can you give us some advice on how a dissertation can be transformed into publishable papers?
European doctoral programs are much better than this than Americans. The European model for dissertations is you have you literally are creating 3 published articles. One is 3 or 4 published articles. One is a literature review. 2 is a conceptual piece. 3 is a methodological piece, and 4 is the empirical piece. And each of those can get, you try and publish each of those papers. Sometimes what happens is the conceptual and lit review are combined. Sometimes you can do it individually, but that is a long held model. I was on Johan Wiklund's dissertation, and his was a classic 3-paper dissertation, and his presentation was, here literally he gave us the 3 papers and then a overview chapter. So that's very much a doable sorts of thing, and it is possible to publish each of those. I've never actually analyzed schools on this, but I suspect, again, a lot of schools are more accepting of a student publishing in a B or C journal if they're publishing dissertation papers. Part of that is also because they want you to finish that quickly, and your chance getting into an A journal is a much more time-consuming process. So they may be happy having you do a C journal, a special issue, and get that paper out and into the publication stream as quickly as possible, if they really want to get you out the door. If you're great free help, they may keep you there for years. There's one other.
So now I'll ask you my last question, because I know I promised you 1 hour and we are already past that.
I'll stay. When I leave here, I'm going to a faculty meeting. I'm much happier here.
So you've had a long career where you've mentored many, many young people, and you named quite a few sort of as we did this. What do you see differentiates people in this profession who are successful from those who sort of never end up publishing, not do research, and sort of go off the research path?
When I talked about the brute force approach, that's an all or nothing. If you're pursuing that brute force approach, it has to be your way, and if you cannot get research colleagues or editors to buy into what you're promoting, it's a very lonely life. I find that the people who drop out are more often people who have tried the brute force approach and have failed. Among people using the research advantage approach I described, the people who drop out are the ones who picked the wrong professor to tie their star to. That it's more a failure to be able to fit in with the professor they picked. And if there aren't many choices, or if leaving that professor ruins the student's chances in that school, that's where danger lies. That said, if you find yourself in that kind of case, go to the Academy of Management, USASB, ICSB, and look for a school that will take you. You are a accomplished graduate student. You have skills. Maybe you publish something, maybe you haven't, but you have skills that could be immediately useful to professors. And so being able to extend a position to a doctoral student who may only need 2 years to get through that's a net good thing for a school. And so if you find yourself in that kind of untenable situation, get to another school, keep going. if you don't give up, it will work out. There should be a path forward. But that brute force approach, or the problem is being solo. There's so much to do. It's so hard to do it all alone. It works better to have friends and colleagues and even, yes, professors to help support you in what you're trying to get done.
So being solo is not a good approach. Tying your wagon to a professor or hitching to there is a good approach, but you said some people make a bad decision in who they hitch to. Could you explain that a little bit more? What does it mean to be hitched to a bad professor?
We've all had everyone watching this has gone through and gotten a bachelor's degree. There were professors who didn't like you for one reason or another. Can you imagine having your entire career in that person's hands? You say, no, that if I knew better, I would not have hitched my star to that person. So that's the kind of thing. We've all had professors that we did better with and professors we did worse with. You have gut feels. Just because a professor is doing something that interests you doesn't mean that's the right professor for you to match up with. Don't let your head rule totally. Your heart, your gut, however you feel about how you will get along with people is essential. Lots of doctoral students drop out. Sometimes it's because of things that happen in their personal life, families, things like that. But and that you can't control for. Although I've had students who have had those things happen, and I've told them, I will put you on leave. And if you need to take 2 years to straighten things out, go ahead. You want to keep talking with me? You want to know what to read? I'll be glad to talk with you. And they came back after 2 years and we got them through the program. I've had people who left because they and I didn't get along. And I helped them find people. When we were at Academy, I introduced them to people to give them a warm introduction. But the point is, you want to work with people who like you and you can like. And if you actually intellectually, you enjoy what they're doing and you enjoy what you're doing, that is glorious. But if it's between the head and the heart, I would say go with the heart. Can't hear you. You're muted.
And that's for those who are in doctoral program. We have many participants who are past their doctoral program. They are assistant professors, and now they want to pursue a research path, but the professor decision was made when they were students. So how do they sort of?
Well, okay, I did actually talk about that. That's where you want to connect to professors already working in that area. Find discussion groups. Find LinkedIn feeds. Find these people. Reach out to them. Volunteer to help them out. Do some grunt work for them. Where are they meeting? Go to those meetings, talk to people, listen, hear presentations, and walk up to someone. I'd be interested. Can I take a piece of what you're doing? Is there something I could help you with? That's it. We all have too much work and not enough time. If people who we can depend on will take some of that burden for us, that's a net good thing. If you can show that, yeah, I can do these kind of analyses, I know how to do this, I'm familiar with this, our library has these resources that you need, to do this. Yeah, that gives you a way. We're all looking for help.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jerry. You've given people a lot to think about. I was taking notes as you were talking to share with my doctoral students here. Thank you very much for your time. And look forward to seeing you at the next conference.
As I said in that slide, I do provide service after sale. I'm glad to respond to emails from any of you